I just feel a lot of people are not able to currently. They're looking for a greater understanding of why all these changes are happening, and it's all in unison all at once. But then the feelings they're having or the energies they're perceiving or being energized by, for them, they're confused by that. Our magnetic field is really much weaker. So either highly ionized ionic winds coming in that really charge the planet, straight up coronal mass ejections with a huge amount of just energetic material, bam, hitting the earth as well. Like, people are getting much, much more, let's say, energized from these events from our sun.
All right. David Dubine of Adapt 2030, the famous YouTube channel that's been helping people learn about the grand solar minimum and supply chain shortages and earth changes, crazy weather, etc. for over 3 decades. No, maybe a decade. I'm not sure how long it's been around, but it's been around
I'm
for
looking
a while.
great for 80, Craig. I'm looking great for 80.
I know. And David's actually over 360 years old. Most people don't know that. Yeah. So
I use C60, red light, and Shalat, and I'm good to go.
Not health advice, but, you know, David is pushing 400.
Yeah, right. I was born in the modern minimum. That's why I'm telling you, the cycle's coming back again.
David's like, it's happened before.
Yeah, when I was born in the 1600s, it's happening again.
Yeah, so firsthand knowledge. So anyway,
yeah, right. And the Dalton minimum, I was middle age. You know?
Yeah,
I was 1815, by the way.
Oh gosh, yeah. So we've gone through some minimums, and now we're really into one. We're getting into one as we head towards 2030. David, living the dream out there in your compound in Tennessee. How are things going? It's good to catch up.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Good to get around for a minute and kind of, put the world's events sort of in some mappable fashion so you can see where it goes. Like, this whole thing for me, I think it's just a distraction as we're changing systems. So if the supply chains would have been fully functional, people would have been asking a lot more questions like, hey, why aren't things there? But you throw up the tariffs, now everything goes awry. You can't value companies the same. Shipping companies are struggling. Tourism, everything in between. Oh, and then it upset the apple cart, and there's a perfect reason for it. And you can explain away the crop shortages without having to explain why there are crop shortages. People will just go with the flow. Everything's tariffs. It's all the tariffs. And you don't have to explain. Their minds will fill in the blanks, and the media will help them do that. So get ready. Here we go. Distraction wave number 2, inbound.
Yeah, and the tariffs are definitely, a huge, well, they got everybody's attention, that's for sure. And we've known that we're moving into the grand solar minimum, so we definitely have the natural crop losses that would be expected. Definitely the crazy weather that's been expected. And like, what do you think of that? When we look at the weather that's happening right now around the world, if you look at the mainstream media, basically anything people are watching on that big screen in their house in the evenings when you walk by and you spy on them, it's CNN or it's MSNBC or it's CBS. It's one of the big 3. When it comes to the mainstream media, and even really the MAM, as they call it now, like the main alternative media, the MAM, it's not a peep, not even the slightest word. I mean, do you think anybody realizes what's going on? Because if a person just subscribes to just some like Instagram channels for crazy weather, for Telegram channels, etc., there's so much info out there on flooding. I mean, crazy hail. There's so much crazy weather, extreme weather, but nobody knows about it.
One of the biggest factors behind aging is a drop in our body's natural collagen production. This collagen drop starts in your 20s, and by your 40s and 50s, your skin is basically starving for it, leading to visible signs of aging like wrinkles, sagging skin, brittle nails, and unfortunately, most collagen supplements on store shelves don't provide the nutrients and absorption your skin needs. This is why I take Ageless Multi-Collagen, providing 5 types of premium collagen. My body actually needs to rebuild skin from the inside out. My results are smoother skin with more elasticity, Plus, it mixes easily into coffee or tea, has zero flavor, no clumps, making it easy for me to stick with. Help rejuvenate your skin with ageless multi-collagen while it's 51% off now only at healthwithadapt2030.com. Plus, order today and receive a free the ebook, The 14 Foods for Amazing Skin, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee, and free shipping. Once again, this offer is only available for a limited time at healthwithadapt2030.com. Click on that link in the description box below. That's what I was doing with the channel, was wrapping all that together.
Yeah.
Now, in the beginning, it was good. It was like 2014. I was buying coffee in Myanmar, and I saw this cold weather damage in Burma, right, to the coffee. And I was thinking, something doesn't seem right. And that was that whole quest, right? You know, I talked to John Casey right when he wrote his first book, Cold Sun. Did a couple interviews with him, really got into it, started broadcasting. And sure enough, right on time with the whole, wiping of any kind of thought that went counter narrative to anything that wasn't 100% CO2. But now there's a lot more information coming out where you can talk a little more freely about it. I am going to be doing about a 30-minute linked video here of that point when Vice News had gotten paid and gotten tipped off from a group of people that were with different NGOs to take down any type of content that was on YouTube. And they also hit up Patreon to tell them to take me down. But because it was more science-based and conjecture, they left me be, but they reduced my reach. So going through different venues and now coming back up to the surface again for another breath, for a better term. These things that were predicted and talked about are in full swing right now. Like what the whole model was like this. I'll just explain it for anybody who doesn't. Grand solar minimum, magnetic fields in the sun change, affecting Earth's magnetic shielding or magnetic field. And we're seeing a decline right now, incredible declines. And I wanted to talk about that rip through the magnetic field with the plasma penetration event over Spain that caused power outages. Like this was already expected anyway. That same deviation in electric current causing that rip through and punch through the ionosphere, that's also what holds our cloud cells and jet streams in place and keeps those moisture patterns nice and smooth that we've figured out over the last 200 years when to plant and when to harvest. Magnetic field of our planet, if it's really tight and compressed, those jet streams really stay locked in place. They don't go very far. They're finding the cloud cells, which are normally from 0 on the equator to say 30 north, like the Hadley cell. That's the most famous one. Those things have moved some hundreds of miles off the equator. They're not at the actual position that they used to be, even when they started measuring and taking, I guess, measurements per latitude on where these cells begin, where the interaction cells are. Because generally it went from equator to 30, and then there was another whole cell that was 30, and it mixed in and pulled all that to 60 degrees north latitude. And then there was another whole cell that was the Arctic cell that pulled all that from 60 up to the Arctic Circle. And that's how, when you get a very ferocious volcanic eruption on the equator, how all that ash gets dragged across the planet. There's that cellular convection going from one cloud cell to the next. Now that's predicated on electricity coming in the system here from a sun, and also the different, I'm going to use the best way to try to is compression on a magnetic field to lock it in place so those jet streams stay locked in place. When that compression comes off, more galactic cosmic rays come in. But as you're seeing now, this is a once in a 400-year event. A lot of people are now really going, hey, this is a once in a 2,000 at the minimum. I'll be conservative and stay 400. We're starting to see it. And then, so that's the natural thing. But then they had to give an excuse. So global warming was perfect, because anything that you saw that was out of the ordinary, global warming, CO2, they bought themselves how much time, how many decades did they buy by people not being aware and not changing their habits and being led by the media to do exactly what they're told through the dog and pony show and this illusion called world that we live in. And then we come to the world that we live in, where, do you think your food just got super more expensive just randomly because? No, there's been continuous decreasing crop yields year upon year since probably about 2019. That's when it was. And right when COVID came in, I'm like, that was the biggest distraction pattern ever. They locked down the planet. And that was one thing I had forecast many a time, 2015, 16, before this thing really kicks off, they're going to lock down the planet. Okay, they locked it down, but then they unlocked it. because they need to bring in a new economic system. So food is going to become one of the most expensive parts of your life. And it's always been that way. The last iteration, every 400 years, you get this cycle that comes back. And the main number one thing is the food's not as available to grow. It's not as plentiful. It's not as nutritious. And the yields are far lower. I don't care if it's veg or if it's fruit or if it's grains. It's been like that through history. Nuts. People can't afford that price. Or they just, think about 500, 800, 1200 years ago. 800 AD, for example. People would have to literally pick up and move. If there was a mega drought or like a saturation event where they couldn't plant and people left. They had to leave. They didn't have just-in-time delivery and shipping like we do today. That's the only reason we have not collapsed this point. We would have been in the collapse mode long like they did in the 1600s had we not have this global shipping where we can move food around. But I am pretty sure that this year rice is going to be the canary in the coal mine.
Okay.
I've done a ton of research on the rice crop using AI, searching all the world's media for crop losses and different variants of like over 10%, over 20%. And rice seems to be taking the major hit this year. And now you got the war with Punjab or with India and Pakistan.
Yes.
Punjab area, that's a huge rice growing area for India too. Chopping it off, nicking it off a little piece at a time. And then Myanmar, massive rice producer, but after the earthquake, they're going to go to near zero. So we're already getting substantial reductions just on those, but it was already looking at 5 to 7% reduction globally in rice this year. Prices up. That's a staple crop, right? So you start to look at this repeating pattern in history, and all it is the magnetic field on the sun changes that really dents and hinders our ability to grow food to the tonnage that we need for the 8 billion people on the planet right now. Prices get so exorbitant for food that you stop spending on everything else, and then the economy contracts, as we're seeing now, because everything else is in a very inflationary environment. Food leads it, though, because if you're paying double or triple or quadruple for your food, you're not spending that extra over going to see movies. You're not spending it on the books. You're not spending it on the nice tables you got in the background there on the fans and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then people, and I saw the fan, and I wanted, the fan in the background there. People are going to start using fans way more than turning on the air conditioning because the electricity is going up. So there's this like switch going on and allocating your money available per month. It's all about the food production, and we're starting to see it now where they can't hide it anymore. So what's happening? Well, we're at the point of the economic reset now. It's just where we sit. I know it's a long-winded answer there. Sorry, Craig, for
it's a very good answer, and it really brings things up to speed because it is good to go into the real details of the grand solar minimum that we're moving into, and that it has historically happened in the past. And this is one of the things, just like if you're watching the big screen on the wall in the evenings, like most people do, you have no idea that there's really earth change weather going on. You don't have any idea why what happened in Spain happened, and we can go into that. People aren't, even though they're paying for it, they're not necessarily aware that I would say since 2020, January 2020, let's say, there's a good chance your food bill went up 20% a year. Maybe, it depends on where you're at and what you eat, but definitely if people haven't noticed, I mean, right now, when things are half price or buy one, get one free, I go, wow, look, they're what they used to cost not long ago. And so, and definitely here in Scottsdale, the land of, vanity, and in other cities that we know, people like San Francisco, a lot of vanity stuff, let's say like Botox, let's say, tattoo removal, just, vanity things that people pay for to do their bodies. People that we know in those businesses, sales are going to kind of zero very fast. And one of the things that we're watching this summer is like Scottsdale's a tourist town. But even in the summer, when everybody comes here, we're seeing big, restaurants close, and you're like, this is as good as it gets is right now. Now, some are still very full of people, but the prices are getting astronomical. I mean, the people who are eating there, they're paying quite a lot for simple things. And so anyway, winter is coming, as or summer's coming, whatever. Our dead season is starting now, and we're very curious, how many restaurants and such close when the tourist season ends. So we'll see how it goes. But even now, This is one of the things I'd recommend to people. Look in your neighborhood, look in your city, look around. What's changing? What isn't there anymore? Are there storefronts that are empty? I mean, it seems like if a person leaves the house and looks around, they've got to see evidence that we're definitely in an economic downturn. And right now, I think it's very obvious that people are, I would say that vanity money is definitely drying up.
Well, if I could follow with the point
Yes.
there, I would agree, but I would say that's a very low, and that's very conservative. I'm glad you went to the conservative of 20% per year. I think it's higher. I'm not going to say far, far higher, but I used to buy this extra virgin Spanish olive oil from this shop because I like either Moroccan olive oil or Spanish. Love them both. Italian, nice, love it. Greek too, good. But I'm just a fan of Spanish olive oils, extra virgin, and Moroccan as well. So maybe that's the first ones I've ever had, but those are my two faves, right? So there's just one shop that carries that I need to go to, like an ethnic store there, has all these different, from Asia to India and everything. Their price went from $18 to $39.
Ooh, yes.
So that's more than doubling, and then, you look at it and go, well, for me, that's a must have for cooking. I'm not going to switch on that. I'm never going to heavy seed oils and stuff.
Yeah.
I will pay that price to get the olive oil. Like there's some things that are a no-go on my list that I don't care what the price it is, I am going to continue to buy it. And you're going to have to take into consideration your health too, because the worst choices you make with food choice, the worse your health is going to be. Because if you're eating toxic meat, toxic stuff out of a box, and you're not cooking whole foods and, bulk aisle kind of stuff, which we're going to go to anyway, you might want to think about maybe a small lifestyle change. And then I'll agree, like the amount of stores that are out of business is ridiculous, especially some small strip malls. The traffic's not there. They're just ghost towns. And China's even worse. They're getting really crushed by the tariffs. I mean, this whole thing for me is a restructuring of the economy with an excuse left to it, because in the economic downturn, it's different this time. How are you going to revalue companies, or how do you give valuation to companies that are non-functional because so many people disappeared off the planet in the last 4 years? Like top level people that had to do that to be in that job position, like they're lacking entire rungs of people now. And the shipping, and now walk through this mind experiment with me, the tariffs. Got the tariffs. Okay, it's charging this. Companies, airlines, really affected. Shipping companies themselves, really affected. All kind of big box stores, retailers, completely affected. And then your food stuff's affected too. But then the machines that produce all that or refine or can do something with that are also affected. So we, in this regionalized world, I tell everybody out there, please look for this document. It's called the Lima Declaration. And I think it was 1976. It was the plan at that time with the signatory of all nations on the planet to come into what we call globalization. We've all lived it. You understood our country, every country's gone and found the most ridiculously cheap labor place and electrical prices. And then they, kind of vampired those destinations up. Now that Lima Declaration ends this year in 2025.
Oh,
the next
okay.
plan, the next step of the Lima Declaration 2, for a better term, is a regionalization plan. This is why when Klaus Schwab says you're only going to have 2 or 3 regional flights per year, that could very well be true, because the whole regionalized basis of this next plan from 2025 to 2050 is to snap that globalization, bring everything back into nations. It's going to be all AI, print on demand, print on manufacture type of world we're moving into. AI is kind of scary in many ways, but it's kind of hopeful in many ways. But the way it's going to substitute jobs, like when these factories relocate, they're not going to relocate them and put 40,000 people in a factory stamping widgets. It's coming back. They might have 40 people there coding and programming how all the AI runs through, and the AI is going to stamp widgets for you on demand after you order it online. Like when this comes back, it's going to be a shell of manufacturing of what it used to be for the need for people. So if you don't have anybody employed, AI is taking over everything. You can't value the stock market the same way, because none of the companies are valued in the same way, right? So we're talking about a complete transition of the economy right at the exact same time of the overlay of this grand solar minimum reducing food production, where food's going to get astronomically more expensive from now. So you have these things dovetailing, and this is the reset. They're talking about it. And, you know, you like cycles and times. So Strauss and Howe, 80-year fourth turning. Okay, we're in that
Yes.
winter, as you just said, winter chapter. We're in that fourth chapter of the downturn. So you get the 80-year cycle, the 20 years of hopefulness, the grandioseness, the expansion, and the decline. Okay, we're in the 80-year last 20 years of decline. But we're also in a grand solar minimum, which is a 400-year cycle. And it lands right now when we're in the decline of the 80-year cycle. Now, as you do that iteration of grand solar minimums going back in time, so you need 5 fourth turning cycles of those 80 years to get the 400-year. So previous, let's say, and you go back to the Sporter minimum, or let's go to the Oort minimum, 800 AD. Okay, well, if you're going to wind the clock back then, they were at the apex of the fourth turning minimum. So the conditions would have been very different. So the fourth turning itself, where it sits in that 80-year fractal, combined in on the grand solar minimum cycles, then we start to get, wow, this is going to be a powerful one, because we got a declining cycle in anyway, and now we got something that knocks the knees out of civilization every single time, compounded on top of that last 20-year declining cycle. We're about 10 years into it, I would say. Maybe not that much, maybe 6. I don't know how many years you think we're into the decline right now.
Yeah, it's a tough one with the how far are we into the decline? It's a tough one, because there's this part of me that I know it doesn't quite match the cycle, but I oftentimes think like 1971. You know, there's something about, you know, getting off the gold standard, etc., that really the world was different after that. Like when America truly went to a debt-based system. You know, and I think 1970 is a little bit too soon, but in the fourth turning doesn't quite match up numbers wise, but I still think there's something about 1970 that dictates a real change in trend. You know, like if a person was looking at, if we had enough data points and we could put it into a chart, I think we would see, okay, there was some, like if a person's a trader, you would see some long candles moving up towards 1970. Then you'd see, sellers are starting to have dominance, and you see like an indecision candle. Then you would see some engulfing big red candles. I think you would see a real change in market, change in direction, at least in the 70s. That's always been my take on it. I could be way off, but there's something about it. I think it matches. So, because one of the things that we're seeing, and it is true, so we have the 400-year GSM cycle. You also mentioned a 2,000-year cycle. I'm not as familiar with that one, but I know you've spoken of it. But also the fourth turning 80-year cycle, which is also matching a 400-year cycle of the GSM. So we have a lot of cycles, and of course we have the planetary lineups. And then if one follows any New Age crazy people like myself, you're going to find that there's a lot of talking about like photonic energy, like plasma energy, that like the earth is being charged up with. One can see it as a mechanical thing. If you're crazy like myself, you can see it as a very, very spiritual thing, and you're feeling some of your superpowers being turned on. And so that's one of the things about this time, is that there's definitely challenges, but like we know, there's, the GSM and evolutionary leaps. So evolutionary leaps are also going to happen. Sasha Dobler wrote his books about that this is also a time of, so we have a time of disaster. I mean, like, yes, my roof is on fire and my first floor is flooded. This is really difficult. But on the second floor of the house, there's some enlightened stuff going on. So are you seeing that? Are you seeing people getting their superpowers turned on? Do you have night vision yet?
No, but you're probably one of the most sane ones out here, because this energy amplification is really tweaking a lot of people in the way they perceive reality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have it. Okay, you understand what's happening with that, and me to an extent too, but you better than I, because, well, maybe it is because I'm just kind of in tune. I walk barefoot a lot outside. I'm always outside a lot. Now, a lot of people that can't understand these energies, they don't know why they're feeling this way. They don't know why they're having these thoughts. They don't know why. And another thing, people are starting to see a lot more glints and things out of the sides of their eyes. This is just another veil that's sort of lived in. This is definitely an indication that there's a different charge state or a different electrical frequency coming in that we're existing in, that is allowing something to be seen on the periphery of the veil. And I know
Yes.
that sounds really woo-woo, but what I mean is your auditory, you're probably picking up different sounds that you can hear now. Your sight, you might start to see in a different frequency, but different than you saw before. And you're noticing that you're seeing different things, not in like, oh, someone's standing in front of me, but just colors might seem a little different. Your energies definitely will feel different, especially with the sun. Our magnetic field is really much weaker. So either highly ionized ionic winds coming in that really charge the planet, straight up coronal mass ejections with a huge amount of just energetic material, bam, hitting the earth as well. Like people are getting much, much more, let's say, energized from these events from our sun. Some people, what would you term it as? I mean, we're seeing society go off the rails. A lot of it's violence, a lot of it's anger, a lot of it's people just like literally breaking down into puddles on the street because their minds just can't process everything that's happening. I mean, this is all going on in unison, but for me, it marks a change that's here. It's not about the world's becoming so offbeat, although it is to a point. Thank you, mainstream media and the news feeds that are guiding them into this direction of they're riding on top of that change to get a greater outcome through the persons who are observing and absorbing the news feeds.
Yeah.
The world's being constructed on their construct for the reset that we're going through. I just feel a lot of people are not able to currently. They're looking for a greater understanding of why all these changes are happening, and it's all in unison all at once. But then the feelings they're having or the energies they're perceiving or being energized by, for them, they're confused by that. And I'm not any person to say I know it all. So if you're feeling different energies, and Craig, I would like you to go into it too, because you are much more in tune with that. Like the different energies we're feeling and experiencing, and society seems to be off the rails, skittish, freakish, but it's not. It's a change of energies, and we haven't been taught to be able to utilize them. And I
Yeah.
think that's where we sit right now. I could be wrong though, man. That's just my assessment.
No, I think that, as the energy charges up, I mean, one of the issues that we have is that anybody who's ever looked at, you go to like 1960, beach photos, you can go to images.google.com and look at like 1960s beach photos, 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. By the time you get to 2020s and 2025, you're going to realize that humanity is dying. Not just sick, but dying. Something really has gone wrong. Now, we can all look at it and say, well, what is it? It's the food. It's, you can say pollution. There's a lot of stuff like that. But one way or the other, we are the sickest humanity has ever been by far. It's an exponential curve if you look at it. And so people are completely sick, and now they're also getting hit with, I mean, I'm amazed that people can even function at all with the garbage they're constantly eating. Like, how do you, like, you just drove through and got that pile of garbage, and now you went over there and you're like still alive and you're functioning? I don't understand. I'd be like sick for days, and that's a good thing. So I think that we're the sickest we've ever been, and that ends up where individuals don't have a sense of when you're walking barefoot, for instance. You feel the earth's energy. We are there's a Schumann resonance that is the basically heartbeat of the earth between us and the magnetosphere or ionosphere. So we have the Schumann resonance, and you can look at that. There's apps you can look online. There's apps you can get for your phone. You can see the KP index, how much radiation we're getting hit with. You can see the Schumann resonance from a couple of different measurements, and it's right there on your phone. And you'll start to feel like, wow, I feel like the Schumann resonance just went up. I feel like the magnetosphere is charged. I feel like whatever. And you can go and check, and you'll find out, if you're sensitive, that you're correct. Most people that I know will all be, like texting each other and such, being like, hey, is the Schumann up? What's going on? I feel it. So we should be able to feel these things. It's just like when we look at all the stone circles and a lot of technology that was made by our, past ancestors, you realize that when they were in that stone circle, they felt it. It was a machine that they used, and we don't necessarily feel that now, and we should. So we're the sickest we've ever been. We're not in touch with our instincts, with our intuition. Instincts being physical intuition, you could say, and true intuition being a spiritual thing, being a metaphysical thing, our natural telepathy. It's very easy to control people right now because you should have a natural intuition, a natural presence. Your ancestors, my ancestors, at some point knew, like, let's not walk down this hill and go hunting and gathering. Let's go this way because there's some saber-toothed tigers there waiting to get us. You came from successful intuition. And so anyway, humanity's never been further away from their bodies. If you look at the state people walk around in, the terrible health, everybody limps by the time they're 25. At this point, they have, repetitive injuries and such. They have bad backs in their 30s. They can't lift anything by 40. I mean, really, we're in a sad state. So I don't want to go on about it too long. But when you start taking a people, a civilization that has no connection to their body, connection to the earth, connection to the Schumann resonance, connection to their spirituality, to their natural, like, magnetosphere where our consciousness, some say, really exists. We can't connect to our natural internet, of consciousness. We're the furthest we've ever been in my lifetime, at least. And now we're getting supercharged with, you could say, like, enlightenment plasma. How about that? You're either going to be able to use that and ground it and become like homo novus, like the new human, or you're really gonna probably become, we're seeing it right now. So really, a spiritual explosion, a consciousness explosion is happening, but I would have to say that I don't think it's a majority of humanity that's doing it. It could be like some crazy number, like a matter of millions, and that's it. I don't know.
The perception, I think the wave of perception is sweeping through the planet. There's no way to stop it. But, one thing that will be seen is the evil that's around us. So you can see why there's so many distractions. So you don't see that. So just walk through me with the mind experiment. We're going through the same transition, but there's no mainstream media. What would that world look like when everybody could see the overseers for what they are? Versus media mind programming, end of the world's happening every day. You're not going to be able to afford your life, apparently, is what they say. And then, that scatter wave of 65 wars starting at one time, the complex supply chains breaking down at one time. So for me, there's a ratio on it. Like, the bigger the giganticness of all the interwoven stories, of the attack over on airport here, the bomb, boom up in the shipping channel there, and then we got the Indian things, like all these things dovetailing and layering over, means that they needed to distract from an energy uptick where people would have picked up on it or been able to resonate into that and break down part of their programming.